vacation, I want to be fully present, spending time soaking up the sun with my family and less time stuck in the kitchen. So today I'm taking you along as I prep 2 full weeks of nourishing freezer meals for our upcoming beach vacation. I'm doing the work now while I'm home with my own tools, rhythms, and ingredients. That way when we arrive, everything is already taken care of. Feeding your family real food on vacation doesn't have to mean cooking every night or stressing over meal plans. A little prep ahead of time can make a huge difference in how you experience the trip, how much you rest, and how well everybody feels, and how much you actually enjoy your time together. The meals I'm prepping are simple, hearty, and family approved. They travel well, freeze beautifully, and reheat with minimal fuss. These aren't fancy meals, but they're made with intention, and that's what matters most. Even on vacation, I want our bodies to feel supported and grounded by what we are eating. So let's get started with our first recipe, which is Einkorn waffles. These waffles are freezer friendly. I will show you how I package them at the end for freezing. I'm tripling the recipe, which I will link below for you. And if you're new here, we eat a lot of einkorn flour recipes. Einkorn is easier to digest with less gluten and more nutrients. We really enjoy cooking with it here. So most of the recipes you'll see today do involve einkorn flour, but you can usually sub out all-purpose flour at the same ratio. A little tip for making this mini waffles and this recipe is to lay them out flat to cool before you package them. If you stack them all up on top of each other while they're hot, they will get kind of squishy and not stay as fluffy. Just a little tip for freezing and reheating if you want your waffle to be the same texture as it was whenever you first cooked it. We eat these all kinds of ways, with tons of butter, with a hard-boiled egg in the morning, or some yogurt with granola on the side. These are great for a snack, or even making a peanut butter and jelly out of them if you don't have any bread on hand. So many ways to use them, and super easy to freeze and travel with. I try to make meals around what we are already eating, so this morning I already planned to make waffles. So why not triple the recipe and get a little head start on meal prepping for our trip ahead. And I do recommend putting parchment paper between each waffle so that they don't stick together. I also made a batch of cinnamon rolls that we ate a few of and wrapped individually and froze for the trip as an easy breakfast or just a yummy dessert. And something we don't leave the house without on vacation is a big batch of yogurt, not a freezer item, something to keep in the fridge or cooler, but definitely comes in handy when meal prepping for trips. We eat this for breakfast with granola or for a dessert with some chocolate chips and peanut butter and honey. Just super great thing to have on hand and takes the thought out of breakfast in the mornings. If you are interested to make this, I will link my 2-ingredient recipe video below. Another thing I do when I know a trip is coming up is choose a few meals that I'm already preparing for dinner and double or triple that recipe to put away some freezer meals. So I am tripling our red beans and rice recipe in the Instant Pot so that I can freeze a bunch of it to bring with us. This is a meal that we're really comfortable with having on repeat because it is so delicious and nutrient dense and so much protein. I do chicken thighs and grass-fed sausage and sprouted red beans as well as bone broth in this recipe. I can link the video below that shows you step-by-step how I make it if you are interested. But this is just one of the meals that I chose to bulk prepare for some easy dinners on the trip. I always do recommend with freezer meals that you fully cool your food before packaging it and freezing it to avoid the extra condensation building up inside the bag or packaging. And freezing flat for travel is very convenient, so you can stack them up on their side in the cooler and it saves a lot of space. I like to take all of the thought out of meal prepping and get exactly how much rice I know I will need and write it on the bag so I know how much water to add. So all I have to do is make the rice. When we go to the beach, we are full day beachers. We take the boat, we're there from morning until sunset. So having meals prepped and nutrient dense ones at that to keep our energy up with these little kids is definitely a necessity. Of course, we will stop at a restaurant here and there on the water just for fun to enjoy ourselves, but we don't like to make a habit of it because we definitely feel the effects of those ingredients that we are not used to eating on a regular basis whenever we do. So back into the kitchen. On this day, I am preparing all of our baked goods for the trip. And this isn't a big batch baking day per se. I did all of this probably in around 3 hours. So we will start with getting some yeast to make some Einkorn pizza dough. I'm going to double the recipe for these doughs and try to get 5 or 6 pizzas out of it. While that yeast blooms, I will get started on some Einkorn tortilla dough. And I'm also doubling this recipe as well. We love to have tortillas on hand. The kids will ask for them just for a snack with some butter. I also bring a lot of primal ground beef, which has organ meats in it, frozen, and we'll thaw that out and make taco meat, which is super easy, and just have tacos on a night where we didn't really plan anything. And I forgot to double that yeast for those pizza dough, so that's what I'm doing here. And while that tortilla dough rises, I will get some bananas mashed up for some Einkorn banana muffins. This is a favorite in our home. I make these very regularly. They are pretty freezer friendly as well. So back to that pizza dough, while I'm trying not to overflow my Berkey, which is a regular occurrence. I'm adding in some olive oil and some sea salt as well as some seasonings. I like to add garlic and some spices like oregano or Italian seasoning to my doughs just to add some flavor to them. If you're not used to working with einkorn, you will see that this is pretty sticky and fun to work with, and adding oil to that bowl is definitely necessary. I recommend getting your hands wet or getting some flour on them when trying to knead this dough, as it is very sticky. And that is just usual with einkorn flour, but it has such an amazing flavor and is so much more easily digestible, being an ancient grain, that it is worth it to me that it's not as easy of a dough to work with. So back to those tortillas. I'll get that dough kneaded just a little bit and separate into golf ball sized dough balls. Einkorn is tricky in tortillas, and the only successful and least aggravating way I have found to make them is with a tortilla press. They aren't as thin as I would like, but they are so sticky and difficult to roll out super thin, and the lack of gluten makes the dough not hold together as easily, so you will be left with a lot of torn tortillas as you try to transfer from the counter to the stove. That's just been my experience, and I have made these many times. It's just so much easier, and I know tortilla presses are known for corn tortillas and not necessarily flour, but they came out so delicious, and it's just a big time saver for me. That pizza dough is almost ready to be worked with. You can see that it has doubled. And back to our banana muffins. Getting all the rest of the ingredients added to those bananas. I love these because we don't have to add any sugar. The recipe only calls for 1/3 cup of maple syrup, which I am doubling that recipe. And my bowl was definitely too small for doubling it, so we transferred to a bigger one. I think we got somewhere around 36 muffins out of doubling the recipe. I like to make mini muffins as well and add in different toppings like chocolate chips and blueberries just to make them a little more exciting for the kids, since this is one of the only baked goods snacks that I brought on the trip. They come in really handy in the car when the kids are fussing. I won't freeze all of them. I will stick some of them in the fridge and then freeze about half of them to thaw towards the end of the trip so that we have some snacks going home. And our pizza dough is ready. I will separate into 5 dough balls and roll out super thin on parchment paper. We do prefer a thin crust. So after rolling out those pizza doughs and measuring them for my vacuum sealer, just to make sure they're not too wide for the vacuum sealer bags, I will bake each dough before adding the ingredients, so it makes my life a lot simpler and the dough is fully cooked. I will go ahead and bake those doughs for about 10 minutes and pull them out and let them cool before adding our toppings. We do not buy pizza sauce around here. It is so easy to make. I'll just whip some up in the blender, and it is just diced tomatoes, the organic cans from Costco, some tomato paste, and a lot of seasonings like oregano and garlic. And you can adjust this to how you like it, but I will link the exact recipe that I used below. And it keeps for a really long time in the fridge. I would say I've kept it up to 6 weeks in the fridge with no problem. Next, I will prep 3 pounds of primal ground beef with the liver, kidney, heart, and tongue ground in here. It's about 10%, so you really don't taste it, but it does add so much nutrients to the ground beef that I'm going to use as a topping for these pizzas. So I put my sauce and my mozzarella cheese, which I buy in bulk at Costco, and I separate it into individual bags for the pizzas and freeze it. So that when I'm making a pizza, I just pull out 1 bag of the frozen mozzarella cheese and top the pizza with that. And I just make all the pizzas the same just to make my life simpler. These are going to be meat lovers pizzas with pepperoni and the primal ground beef and lots of cheese. We can cut up some veggies and some jalapenos and things like that and add it on top later if we want to. I love this Food Saver vacuum sealer. This is the best way I have found to travel with homemade frozen pizzas. I don't let it fully vacuum seal the pizza all the way, or else it will suck the pizza sauce and make a big mess in the bag. So I just watch it closely, and just before it gets too tight around the pizza, I will hit the seal button and seal those up. Now. So they are airtight and super freezer friendly. And then pro tip, freeze them on a cookie sheet or something flat in the freezer so that they don't freeze in a weird shape. And while I prep some breakfast items like bacon and sausage, I will get some sourdough bread going in the mixer. I let the mixer do all of the work whenever I make a sandwich sourdough loaf. And this is a big thing I don't like to leave town without, because I do notice a big difference when we eat store-bought bread versus our sourdough bread. It's really hard to find long fermented sourdough bread, even at a bakery. So that's something that I try not to leave the house without when we go out of town. I'm already in the kitchen, so I prepped some breakfast sausage and some bacon that I will put in the fridge for whenever I am ready on the next day to make some breakfast freezer meals. It is a crazy, stormy, rainy day today, so I'm in the kitchen with no natural light and making the last recipes that I have for this vacation prep. So I'll be starting with some sheet pan eggs. This is the easiest way I have found to make a bunch of egg patties for breakfast sandwiches. So I'll add the egg, some cream, and some spices and some green onions. Get the immersion blender in there and get it well blended up. Pour it in the baking dish and cook it for about 18 minutes until the middle is solid. And while that bakes, I am going to get started on a full chicken in the Instant Pot. This is one of our biggest backyard chickens. I wanted to have a lot of chicken meat to prep some meals with and to freeze. So I'm just seasoning this up with some Cajun seasoning. And of course, I forgot to weigh it. I really think that I should weigh my chickens when we process them and write it on the bag, because I forget to weigh them every time, even after I get them all ready. That one was about 7 pounds, so we are going to pressure cook it for 38 minutes. And I will show you what we're doing with that. I have some English muffins here, and we are going to make some super delicious breakfast sandwiches to freeze for the trip. These came in so handy, and we had the last 2 sandwiches on the last day on our way out of town, and we were so grateful that we did have them. I add a lot of bacon. I fold that bacon in half whenever I bake it to where it's like a double bacon, so 2 pieces of bacon doubled down with some cheese and some egg and some mayo, and I wrap them up nice and snug in some parchment paper and then seal it up with some plastic wrap. And when it's time to cook these, I just pull them out, take the saran wrap off, and we don't use microwaves at home, but that is one very convenient thing that we do take advantage of on vacation sometimes. So pop them in the microwave or in the oven, and they are so delicious. I am making some breakfast burritos and breakfast tacos, which is another super easy breakfast option that freezes really well and is very easy to heat up quickly in the morning. I do recommend pulling them out the night before, both the breakfast sandwiches and the tacos and burritos. Not necessary, but just makes it a little easier so you don't have to defrost in the morning or in the microwave. And these are what I'm using the sausage in. And I'm just adding sausage, egg, and cheese to these. I spiced those eggs up pretty good. And these also came out super delicious and reheated really well. Here is what I used that whole chicken for. It was a large one, so I got plenty of meat out of it. I made some chicken salad for the road. So 1 container for the road, 1 container for the cooler that we will eat on the boat or on the beach while we are there for the first few days. And this last container, I chopped it up for chicken salad and I will freeze it so that whenever I am ready to make another batch about halfway through our trip, it's all ready to go. And here is a look at everything I have accomplished for this trip. It makes me feel very proud and very empowered to have all of this delicious, nutrient-dense food for my family. I feel prepared, and it really wasn't all that hard. I just had to do a little bit of planning, but I did tell you I would show you how I packaged everything for the car. So one cooler is specifically for freezer meals, and I stacked those pizzas and that red beans and rice upright on its side so everything fits very nicely, and I put everything else that's smaller in big Ziploc bags to keep it getting wet from the ice. So I'll pack everything tightly. It is all frozen, so it'll keep each other cold, and then I will top with lots and lots of ice. We have about a 6-hour drive, and there are those sourdough cinnamon rolls, which were so good. Those do freeze really well, by the way. And we had such an amazing time at the beach and did not have to worry about food, which was such a gift. If this video encourages you or gives you ideas for your next trip or season, I'd love for you to stick around. I share homemaking, motherhood, and from scratch living, all from my little corner of the South, and I'd love to have you along. Thank you for being here. Until next time, bye y'all.